Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I've got another review. Today I'm going to be reviewing this 2014 Ford Focus ST3. So this Ford Focus is actually kind of like the pre-facelift version. In 2015, the year right after this one, they basically did a facelift which pretty much just included like a different like front and back bumper and some like, you know, different body panels here and there. But I mean, for the most part, they kind of kept the same drivetrain. Now, kind of the story behind this car is that it was actually just bought like a few months ago with, you know, no mods, completely stock by the owner with literally just 21,000 miles on it. So obviously it's a very low mileage car. It's a very clean car. And he actually has kind of started to begin modifying it. And he does have a lot of plans for it in the future. So before I get into some of the things that make this specific Focus unique, I did just kind of want to mention some factory, I guess, you know, factory measurements, body measurements. So this 2014 Ford Focus actually comes from factory with a length of 171.7 inches, a width of 71.8 inches, a height of 58.4 inches, and a wheelbase of 104.3 inches. This car actually also weighs just over 3,200 pounds with a curb weight of 3,223 pounds. So like I said before, this owner actually has, you know, started kind of, I guess, the modifying process with this car. So in the front, you can actually see the front cup spoilers that he's actually added on. And actually, if you take a look inside the grille, he's actually kind of shaved out the grille. And in the back, he's literally like over sheet metal, over like black sheet metal, he's put kind of like a Ford Performance sticker, which I think it really looks cool. At first, I thought it was maybe a different front mount intercooler or something like that. But yeah, it definitely blends in. It's not too obnoxious. It's not too like in your face. But if you take a second to look at it, you can definitely see it and you can definitely appreciate it. So one other thing that this owner actually did on the back is that he actually put in this like spoiler raiser. So as you can see, this black part and that kind of goes all the way underneath the spoiler. It just raises up the factory spoiler just a little bit. Still, you know, takes advantage of that third brake light. It's not like this huge modification, but it definitely, again, it's something that's, it's a kind of like a small detail that, you know, if you actually take your time and look at the car, you can definitely, you know, appreciate it a lot more. So now moving on, I'm just gonna briefly talk about the wheel setup that comes with this car. Now this is, you know, completely the, you know, factory wheels. It's basically 18-inch alloy wheels all the way around, and they're actually wrapped in Toyo Extensa HPs that are 235 by 40 by 18s. So again, the one thing that I kind of don't really like the designs of these wheels. I feel like they're a little bit too much. I do kind of like the 5-spoke design. I feel like a wheel with just kind of like regular 5 spokes instead of like these forks at the end would maybe look a little bit better. But you know, again, it's something that the owner might, you know, plan to change in the future. But yeah, I did just kind of want to mention that for anyone interested in this specific car, because these are actually the wheels that do come with them from factory. All right, so now I did actually just kind of want to touch upon the brakes and the suspension. Now the brakes on this car are actually kind of interesting. The owner told me that this is actually a late model 2014. So he actually does have the double piston calipers in the front and the single piston calipers in the back, whereas most 2014 Ford Focus STs actually just have the single piston calipers in the front, which I found pretty interesting. It's just kind of like a neat little feature about this car. Now the suspension, it's kind of, I guess, something that I can kind of critique this car on, because it is a completely independent suspension, but it does kind of just have the regular, you know, tradition McPherson style struts, whereas if it kind of came with the double wishbone style suspension, I'm sure the car would handle a lot better. All right guys, so now we have the hood popped on this Focus, and underneath the hood you can see the 2-liter 4-valve per cylinder double overhead cam turbocharged inline 4-cylinder engine that this car comes with. Now this engine is actually branded as EcoBoost. Now it's something that if you've seen some of my previous reviews, I kind of rip on Ford for, because I feel like it's pretty stupid. Like they just brand, it's just like a marketing kind of name for it. They pretty much call every single one of their vehicles now that has a turbo an EcoBoost, which I don't know. I just think that's kind of stupid. But this engine is actually pretty impressive. I mean, from factory, with a factory tune and everything, it actually makes 252 brake horsepower at 5,500 RPMs, and actually 270 foot-pounds of torque at 2,500 RPMs. So that being said, I mean, when you take into consideration like the 3,200 pound curb weight that this car actually does have, like I'm sure it's definitely pretty quick. Like it's not slow at all. I know some people see, you know, 200 something horsepower and they're like, oh wow, that must be slow. But I mean, the thing is, this car is, you know, front wheel drive, so it definitely handles great. And again, it doesn't weigh a lot, so I'm sure it definitely gets up and moves. So the only thing right now this owner actually has done to this vehicle is actually just a diverter valve from Go Fast Bits. But I mean, yeah, that's pretty much the only thing that he's got done. This filter, even though it's a pod filter, it's basically just the stock filter. He just took the cover off it. One thing that I did find really cool is actually this kind of tunnel that goes from the grill, like right to the filter. Now, yes, it's kind of tiny. It's not, it can definitely be a lot more efficient. And the owner actually did mention in aftermarket intake that it's basically just like, it kind of bolts onto this and it's a bigger funnel, I guess. But yeah, I did just kind of find that pretty cool. Another thing that I did kind of find weird is like this plastic covering that's over the like stock exhaust manifold. I don't really get the whole like honeycomb design. I guess you can't really burn yourself. But yeah, I did just kind of want to mention that. Another thing too is that the turbo is actually not right here in the front. I know in some, you know, transverse mounted turbocharged engines, if the exhaust is on this side, it's right here in the front, like you could see it. If you actually haven't seen my I did a 2018 Honda Civic Si review, and it was literally, you know, right here. But the exhaust is actually, according to the owner, it's actually like underneath the engine, somewhere like back here, because as you can see, the intake also kind of loops around back there as well. And if you kind of follow the exhaust piping, it goes kind of underneath the engine. Now, he said that it's like that kind of for like international regulations, because this car was, you know, sold basically all around the world. So yeah, that's just a couple things that I did kind of just want to mention, you know, about this engine. That being said, this car actually is still running the factory tune on it. So I am going to go over some factory miles per gallon numbers, but definitely one thing to keep in mind is that this car is definitely capable of a lot more with a, you know, different tune on it, and the owner does plan to get it tuned in the near future. But yeah, I'm just going to go over some real quick, you know, miles per gallon numbers. Then I'm going to take a look inside the interior, and then I'll take this thing out for a drive. So basically, this engine, when combined with the 6-speed manual transmission that this car comes with, it actually makes a pretty impressive 23 miles per gallon during city driving and 32 miles per gallon during highway driving, for a combined of 26 miles per gallon. Now those numbers are very impressive. And the only thing that I kind of, I guess, could critique on that is that this car actually only has a 12.5 gallon fuel tank, actually 12.4 gallon fuel tank to be exact. So the range is actually only 285 city miles and 396 highway miles. Now still, it's pretty impressive. I'm being very, like, you know, nitpicky. But yeah, I mean, the miles per gallon numbers are great, but the fuel tank's, I guess, a little bit smaller. So yeah, but I mean, still, you get something that can probably take corners very, very well and is still somewhat quick with, I mean, fantastic miles per gallon numbers. For a drive real quick, but I did just want to mention that this specific Focus, like I briefly mentioned in the intro, it is an ST3, so it's kind of like the top of the line trim. So it actually does come with these fully leather Recaros, and I actually was sitting in the passenger seat before, and like, let me tell you, like, they're super, super comfortable. Now, one thing that I do kind of find a little bit weird is kind of how this shifter's like set up. It's kind of like on a tilt. I don't really think that's going to affect anything when I'm driving it. But yeah, I mean, overall, like, the interior, there's nothing too crazy, nothing too special, but I definitely wanted to mention these seats, and I'm sure, like, it's going to feel great, like, handling, cornering when I'm driving it. All right, guys, so now I'm actually driving this Focus, and one thing that I don't really like about it is that the owner did say this to me, the clutch is like super strong. It's not heavy, but like as soon as you lift it up, first of all, it's got a very like low catch point, and as soon as you lift it up, it just like kind of bucks into gear. Now I'm trying to go as smooth as I can, but I mean, that being said, as far as like just how it drives, it handles amazing. I mean, the steering is extremely tight. Now, does it pull so much on straightaways? not so much, but again, it's still pretty quick. And the steering is probably like the best, I guess, mechanical feature of driving this car. And yeah, no, it's definitely quick. It's definitely quick for sure. I chirped a little bit in second gear. And the one thing that I actually also forgot to mention when I was doing the walk around is that this owner actually has a AWE track catback exhaust on it. So again, I completely forgot to mention that on the walk around. So sorry about that, but yeah, no, it sounds great for a 4-cylinder, for a turbo 4-cylinder. It does sound really good. And again, I mean, it just handles amazing. The thing that I like most about this car is driving in corners, because like combined with the seat, like, you know, the Recaro seat, and just the overall like kind of front wheel drive, like how tight the steering is, like, again, I'm not gonna push this car to its limit, but I'm sure you can definitely like take some corners at like really like higher speeds. So now, like I said before, this owner did pick up this car a few months ago, and the year's 2020, this is a 2014, he actually got it with 21,000 miles on it, and he basically paid like right under 20 grand for it. In my opinion, that's a steal. I know it's not an RS, and I know some people might hate on it because it's a Focus, and they'll be like, oh, whatever, it's just a Focus. But honestly, like anything with 21,000 miles after, I don't know, I guess this car is 6 years old now. Basic math, am I right? But no, yeah, I mean, something like that old with that low mileage, like, again, it's not the oldest car ever, but I mean, still, he basically has a car that's pretty much brand new, and he can do whatever he wants to it in the future, and he does plan to keep it for a long time. Wow, I was just cornering a little bit in second gear, and then all of a sudden, I guess the boost kicked in, and I got a little bit of torque steer. Now, right now, the owner actually said that this car is running right at like 21 pounds of boost, he says, from factory. So I guess, I mean, the boost gauge goes up to 25 in this car, but yeah, it doesn't go all the way up to 25. So yeah, I guess some guys who are into Ford Focuses might say that that's, you know, not that much boost, but I mean, still, 20 pounds of boost is 20 pounds of boost. So it definitely completely changes this car once the turbo kicks in. Now, that being said, there's not too much turbo lag. It is a newer car, and it is, again, a factory setup, so everything's designed for, you know, the turbo that's on this car. So yeah, you don't really experience a major amount of lag, and it's certainly not enough to be, you know, dangerous at all. Like when you're going like halfway around the corner and all of a sudden, you know, the boost kicks in and you fishtail. I mean, it's a front wheel drive car, so it's like, it's not crazy, but it was definitely a pretty cool experience when I just kind of took that corner and went full throttle, and then like halfway through the apex, I just, all of a sudden the boost kicked in, and then the steering wheel kind of just you know, straightened out a little bit. Now, I don't know if the mic's picking it up, but when I'm kind of just in second gear and I'm just like giving it a little gas at like 3,000 RPMs and letting off real quick, you can kind of hear like the little bit of turbo flutter. Now, that is coming from the diverter valve that the owner actually has in this car, or, you know, on the engine or whatever. But I mean, yeah, I don't really have too much complaints for this car. I mean, I guess if you took it out on the highway and did some pulls with it, I'm sure like that's where I guess someone could kind of get bored of it, because it's, again, it's not like it's not a ridiculous amount of power. But I mean, driving through a park, taking corners, stuff like that, like real driving, not just going in a straight line, it's really fun. I mean, I don't have any complaints with this car. I mean, probably my favorite thing about this car is these leather Recaros. Now, after driving it for a while, I'm sure it definitely gets uncomfortable. It's not, you know, designed for comfort, but I mean, I'm not moving around at all. Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely not a ridiculous amount of power, but it's very, honestly, for a 4-cylinder, it is pretty torquey. It's very similar, very similar to the 2018 Honda Civic Si that I reviewed on the channel about like a month or so back. All right, guys, that's pretty much just gonna wrap up today's video. If you stuck to the end of this review, definitely be sure to leave a like. It helps out my channel a lot. And be sure to let me know what you liked and disliked in this video in the comments down below, because that, you know, helps me make better videos in the future. But I mean, yeah, I mean, overall, going into this review, I didn't expect much from this car, but this car is really fun, honestly. So, I mean, yeah, if you stuck to the ends, like I said before, just, you know, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, if you like my format. And yeah, until the next one, see you guys.